I am Dr. Rajneesh Kumar Mishra, an associate professor at School of Sanskrit and Indic Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. My teaching and research areas involve Kashmir Shaiva Darshan, that is also known as Trik philosophy, Sanskrit linguistics, India's intellectual traditions, literary theories, Indian and Western, and also comparative aesthetics. Today, in this module, we are going to talk about Acharya ABHINAVGUPT, one of the legends of Kashmir. Acharya ABHINAVGUPTapad, this is how he is with great reverence referred, known and cited by scholars in Sanskrit and in Indological studies throughout the world. He is known also as an incarnation of Maharshi Patanjali Sheshnag, and also he is an incarnate of Shiva, and in this way he is known as Dakshinamurti and reincarnate of Shiva. And his commentator on Tantralok, that is his world famed encyclopedic text on Tantra, Tantralok, and the commentator of this text, Acharya Jairath, calls him Yogini Bhu. That's a technical term. Yogini Bhu, there are certain characteristics, features listed in Tantralok commentary on by this great commentator Jairath, and he says that Yogini Bhu is the person who has acquired, I mean by birth, a kind of great devotion to Shiva, and he is endowed with many yogic powers, and also he is also gifted with poetic power. So there are so many things involved, and that shows the importance and place of Acharya ABHINAVGUPT in India's intellectual tradition. What is important to know is that Acharya ABHINAVGUPT is such a great thinker who has contributed not only in one domain of knowledge, but in a number of intellectual domains. For example, he is a great Acharya of Tantra, philosophy, music, grammar, literary theory, and also creative literature. His stotra literature is of great importance, and that shows how deeply he is involved so far his intellectual caliber and poetic powers are concerned. Acharya ABHINAVGUPT belongs to 10th 11th century of Kashmir. He studied under many great teachers of his time who were known for his scholarship and contribution in various knowledge domains. At the same time, you can see that how he has himself contributed and he has added on to whatever he has received from his great teachers. We'll come to that issue a little while. Acharya ABHINAVGUPT, as I told you, he belongs to 10th 11th century of Kashmir, and his ancestors were not originally from Kashmir, they were from Kanyakubj area. When in 740 AD, the great Kashmiri king Samrat Lalitaditya defeated the king of Kannauj, Kanyakubj area, Yashovarman. Then he annexed that area empire into his own, and there in Kanyakubj area he met a great scholar whose name was Atrigupta. Samrat Lalitaditya, with great respect, requested him to come to Kashmir and settle down in Srinagar. This great scholar Atrigupta went to Kashmir on his request, and he was given adequate property to settle down there and to continue with his scholarship and to educate people. This Atrigupt is recorded in Abhinavgupt's details of his ancestry by himself in his text Tantralok. This scholar Atrigupt, his forefather, after him we don't have much details of his ancestry. Then we come to Varahagupta, and then father of Abhinavgupta, who is Narsimgupta. Abhinavgupta writes about his father. He was a great scholar of grammar. In fact, he studied Sanskrit grammar under his guidance, and he is known also as Chuklak. His father is known also as Chuklak. So this is his nickname. And the name of Abhinavgupt's mother is Vimala or Vimalakala. These are the two variations referring to the same person. So Vimala is the name of Abhinavgupt's mother. Abhinavgupta lost his mother in his early childhood, and then he studied for some time under his father, but when after some time his father also got, disillusioned by this worldly behavior and worldly affairs, and then he also took resort to sannyas. Then he was looked after by his relatives in Srinagar itself. Finally, he went to study under the guidance of great teachers of his time. So, for example, he studied poetics under Bhattataut, a great poetician of his time, and Bhattenduraj. He also studied Tantra and Kul, etc., all these branches of Tantric under Guru Shambhunath. And then so far his philosophical positions are concerned, he studied Pratibhigya Shastra under the great teacher Acharya Lakshmangupta. So this is how his intellectual caliber and authenticity of his knowledge is established. Abhinavgupta wrote more than 40 works. Unfortunately, not all of them are available to us. Around 26, 27 works are available to us. But more important is that he, in his texts, particularly in his encyclopedic text Tantralok, he refers to more than 56 agamic texts, and not all of them are available to us. Those texts which are referred by Acharya Abhinavgupta in his own texts, and even his commentator later on, Acharya Jairath, he refers to more than 200 such works. So that again underlines how much loss India's intellectual tradition has suffered. Acharya Abhinavgupta, as I told earlier, wrote in a number of disciplines. So far his literary field is concerned, we have two great commentaries, that is Dhvanyalok Lochan. Dhvanyalok is the text of Anandavardhan in poetics, where he establishes the theory of suggestiveness, theory of semantic resonance in this world-famed book called Dhvanyalok. Lochan is the commentary on this text by Acharya Abhinavgupta, and this is not just a commentary. It establishes Dhvani theory, and also it responds to the critics of Dhvani before his time. So that's why it is considered to be as important as the original text. His commentaries bear this testimony. Then the next one is Abhinav Bharati, that is the commentary on Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, and as I told, this is the only complete commentary on Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. In this commentary, he takes, he in fact contextualizes Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra in India's intellectual and cultural contexts. And then one can see that the kind of exposition Abhinavgupta does, he has his own way of doing. He has a very fundamental understanding of the text, and he knows how to expound the text. While expounding the text, he in fact correlate the ideas, then cites intertextualities from other sources, from other similar texts, and then puts forth a number of interpretations given by his contemporaries or earlier scholars, and then critiques them and finally comes to the conclusion. So in a way, Abhinav Bharati is also a very, very important text so far India's literary theory and aesthetic theories are concerned. Now, so far Tantra is concerned, that is his main area, and there are 4 branches. In fact, Kashmir has 4 branches of philosophical and tantric tradition. It is technically known as Kul, Kram, Spand and Prativigya. So among all these 4 branches, Kul is the most ancient one, and here Acharya Abhinavgupta has contributed a lot. The tradition of Kul or Kashmir Shaivism in fact is initiated or expounded primarily by Shiva himself, or and then he gave this discourse to his disciple, his devotee Durvasa, and then Durvasa to his 3 Manasputra or Shishya, Amardak, Srinath and Triambak. And there is another school coming from the side of Triambak, from Triambak's daughter in fact, that is known as Ardha Triambak. So these are the 3 important 3.5 important schools or departures in Kashmir Shaivism. Finally, you will see this these 3 branches coming down from these 3 great acharyas, Srinath, Amardak and Triambak, and also Ardha Triambak. Abhinavgupta is considered to be the most authentic, most accepted acharya for all these branches. Whatever he has written in these branches, he has commented upon all these texts of these branches, and that point of view is considered to be the final one. You will see that in Kul branch of Kashmir Shaivism, Kul means Shakti, and that is also the primordial energy principle. In that text that is coming down, that is the most ancient one, and coming down from the discourse given to Shiva and between Shiva and Parvati, the structure of a tantric text is that sometimes Shiva asks questions, Parvati answers, Shakti answers, and then sometimes Shakti asks question, Shiva answers. So this is a kind of dialogue. Tantric texts are composed in the form of dialogue, and this is how it has been received down the traditions. So in this text, in the text of Kul system, the very, very important text is Siddha Yogeshwari Tantra, and this Siddha Yogeshwari Tantra is again abridged, and then it becomes Malini Tantra, Malini Vijay Tantra, and then a kind of appended text is also there, that is known as Malini Vijayottar Tantra. Abhinavgupta has a commentary on this text, Malini Vijay Vartik, and there he expounds the basic fundamental ritual practices and philosophical positions in this text. The third category of Acharya Abhinavgupta's works belong to his philosophical texts, and that comes from the great lineage initiated by Triambak. In fact, in that lineage we have a a great scholar of 7th, 8th century. He is known as Somanandanath. Somanand's text is called Shivadrishti. Here we find the first philosophical text. I don't know whether I should call it first, but maybe there will be other texts, but they are not available to us. In that sense, I am saying this is the first philosophical text of Prativigya school of thought. So this Shivadrishti is a very, very important departure. Guru or Siddha Somanandanath is in his text, he talks about his own lineage, and then he says that he belongs to the 19th generation of the scholars and Siddhas. And before him, he names 4 or 5 more, Sangamaditya, Arunaditya, Varshaditya Nath, all these scholars he notes in his text. Though we don't have any text of these scholars before Somananda. After him, we have great scholar whose name is Utpal Dev, and here this Prativigya philosophy in fact takes its very, very perfect and profound form. The text of Utpal Dev is called Prativigya Karika or Prativigya Sutra. In both ways it is referred to. This is the text that expounds this theory of recognition of the self as Shiva in great details. There are several sections devoted to Gyan, Kriya, Agam, all together constitute this fundamental philosophical system. And then his disciple is Lakshmanagupta, who is the teacher of Abhinavgupta. Abhinavgupta got his training under this great Acharya. So, in a sense, Utpal Dev is Param Guru of Acharya Abhinavgupta. Why it is important? Prativigya in its own form, as I know that this Prativigya text, Prativigya Karika, was commented upon by Acharya Utpal Dev himself, and this is called Vivriti. Technically it is called a kind of commentary, let us understand in that way. Vivriti is a kind of commentary. So Acharya Utpal Dev wrote a commentary on his own text. This is an auto commentary, but to great extent it is lost. Recently some of the folios of this text has been found by a great modern scholar of Kashmir Shaivism, whose name is Professor Rafael Torella from Rome University. So those folios have been published, but complete text is still not available to us. So this is Vivriti. Acharya Abhinavgupta wrote 2 commentaries on this text, Prativigya Karika. One is called Ishwar Prativigya Vimarshini. So Vimarshini is the name of commentary of Acharya Abhinavgupta, and this is also known as Laghvi Vimarshini, short Vimarshini. Second is a commentary on both Utpal Dev's text Prativigya Karika as well as his commentary Vivriti. So that's why it is called Ishwar Prativigya Vivriti Vimarshini. So this is called Brihati Vimarshini because it take both these texts, Prativigya Karika as well as Vivriti of Acharya Utpal Dev. So it's a voluminous text, of course. So these 2 commentaries are on this Prativigya system, and they are highly scholarly texts, highly scholarly. Not only important for a very, very important text in Kashmir Shaivism, but also for the whole Indian philosophical systems, because he just not talks about the issues, philosophical positions of Prativigya. He in fact engages himself in debate with Buddhists, with Nyayikas, with Mimamsakas, with Vedantins and many other philosophical schools. So that's why it is very, very important to see how a great scholar of Kashmir Shaivism in the 10th, 11th century, in fact, is making critique of or a review of the Indian philosophical systems. So this is very, very important. Kashmir is known for its scholarship. From the ancient time, it has been known as one of the greatest seats of learning. That's why the whole area is also known as Sharda Desh, the area or the land of goddess Saraswati, Sharda Desh. And there is a Sharda temple. Unfortunately, it is in ruins, just 7-8 kilometers away from the line of control on the other side, which is occupied by Pakistan. There is also a tradition, a seat of learning, and that is called Sarvagyapeeth. A great scholar, the greatest scholar of his or her own time, was given this honor to sit on this Sarvagyapeeth. Once it was given to Acharya Shankar, then it was given to Acharya ABHINAVGUPT. So this is the importance of Kashmir. This has been the center of 14 knowledge domains where scholars used to go and get training. Kashmir is not important just for Shaivism. Of course, Shaivism in fact originated from here. Philosophy of Shiva and Shakti in fact originated from Kashmir. But equally important is this place for other philosophical systems. For example, Buddhism, for example, Mimamsa, Nyaya, and many tantric cults and practices. Anyways, so this has been the importance of Kashmir. You know, there is a specific script which was developed by this land, scholars of this land. It is known as Sharda Lipi, Sharda script. And many ancient Sanskrit texts till the medieval time, they were composed in Sharda script. The language is Sanskrit, of course, but the script is Sharda. Unfortunately, very few people these days know this text, script. So a text composed in this script is difficult. It has become inaccessible for many of our scholars. So there is a great need to learn this script at mass level. The testimony to this fact is that manuscripts of ABHINAVGUPT are found all over India, and they were scribed by the scholars who visited Kashmir and then took these texts to their own regions or areas. One of the disciples of Acharya ABHINAVGUPT belongs to down south from Tamil Nadu. His name is Madhuraj Yogi, and he visited Kashmir. He became the disciple of Acharya ABHINAVGUPT and wrote a beautiful stotra known as Gurunath Paramarsh, where he describes his teacher Acharya ABHINAVGUPT Pad in such a lively way. One should in fact go through this great text. That shows how pervasive and how accepted was his scholarship and his personality throughout India. ABHINAVGUPT in fact took Kshetra Sannyas, a concept that a scholar vows that he or she would not leave this particular region, and whosoever wants to learn, who wants to know, would come to him or her and acquire that knowledge. So this is what he decided in his life, 3 goals in fact: Granth Nirman, Granth Ka Adhyan, text, study of the text, composition of the text, and Shiva Bhakti, a great in-depth devotion for Lord Shiva. So this was his 3 goals, and he took Kshetra Sannyas and stayed there in Srinagar. And this is how he could contribute in a number of knowledge domains. ABHINAVGUPT is trained in both traditions, in the mystic traditions as well as the scholastic tradition. This is very rare. A mystic may not be a scholar may not be a mystic, but this is a rare combination that whatever he is writing, he has experienced that, and the testimony is there in his own texts. He says that I have composed my text like Tantralok, that is, as I referred to this text earlier also, this is an encyclopedic text of India's tantric traditions. He says that I have composed this text from my own experience, and also with the help of Tantra Yukti. Tantra Yukti means a logical kind of explanation. And in many places, when you go through this text, in many places he says that I can explain or I am supposed to explain this particular issue up to this point only. Beyond this, I have not been given permission to reveal or to expound. The experiencer or the mystic who is getting training would come across this kind of experience on his or her own. So that shows that he is coming down in a tradition of mystics. He is equally well versed in that domain. At the same time, he is composing the text of great scholastic value. And in all these branches, as I referred to earlier, coming down from the dualist tradition, dual come non-dualist tradition, and non-dualistic tradition, Dvait, Dvaitadvait, Advait. He is equally familiar, well versed in all these domains, and the evidences are there in his own text. I am no need to imagine. And then in the other traditions like Kul, Kram, Spanda and Prativigya, he is master of all these branches, and whatever he has said about any of these branches, whether it is mystic or scholastic, it is taken for granted, it is taken accepted with great reverence, and he has been throughout referred down the tradition. So such is the importance of Acharya Abhinavgupta. He is a very, very important scholar in grammar. Grammar, I must tell here that grammar is not just about description of language. It is much more than that. In fact, the grammatical discipline of grammar in our country, in our intellectual tradition, is one of the philosophical system. So I would just refer to a text by Madhavacharya in 14th-15th century, Sarvadarshan Sangrah. The 13th chapter of this text is called Panini Darshanam. That means grammar has been accepted as one of the 16 philosophical systems, and since he is giving this title as Panini Darshanam, he is not saying that philosophy of grammar is established in 14th century. No, it refers to Panini, who belongs to 7th century BC. So this is one of the oldest philosophical system, and of course the major text comes in the 4th-5th century. It is Vakyapadiya of Bhartrihari. That is the seminal text, fundamental text of philosophy of grammar. Abhinavgupta has contributed in this domain also a lot, so far grammatical derivations are concerned or grammatical philosophical positions are concerned. Then one can see that in the domain of philosophy of grammar, he in fact in his literary commentary also, people don't pay much attention to his literary commentaries. That is also a testimony of his knowledge, deep knowledge of grammar, because he is the linguist, he is the grammatical exegete. So he takes note of these words and then expounds its verbal root, prefixes, suffixes, and the whole derivational process. And in that way, he brings in many issues of culture, philosophy, aesthetics, and many more. I would just refer to one text, and that is Dhanyalok Lochan. In the end of every chapter, there are 4 chapters, Udyot in Dhanyalok. At the end of every Udyot, Abhinavgupta ends with a kind of prayer, and this is the prayer to speech, goddess of speech or the forms of speech. Namely, it is Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari. These are the 4 stages of speech, 4 avasthas of speech. So, in the first, second, third and fourth Udyot of Dhanyalok Lochan, he describes this, because whatever we compose in the form of literature, Sahitya, in fact one should say Sahitya or Kavya, this is nothing other than speech, language. Literature cannot escape the linguistic materiality, and that is why it is very important to know the nature and character and the efficacy of speech. So, at the end of this commentary, he invokes these 4 levels, Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari. This is the domain of philosophy of language. For Abhinavgupta, being a synthetic thinker, encyclopedic thinker, civilizational thinker, one can see various aspects of culture, society and environment, many more things are involved. So, when he expounds, you will see the whole world is coming out of it. He is not just focusing on a particular or a partial manifestation of something. He presents them in its totality. This is how his theory of exposition goes on. So, here also in Tantric literature, philosophy of language, philosophy of speech sound is widely discussed, and unfortunately from these 2 streams of Indian culture, that is, one is Agam, another is Nigam. Nigam is another name for Ved, Agam is another name for Tantra. Unfortunately, down the tradition we have forgotten this Agamic tradition, and these days the word Tantra has acquired a very negative connotation, mainly contributed by our own ignorance. But so far Tantra texts are concerned, they are highly philosophical and mystic texts. On the other hand, we have Ved. Our scholars, our rishis were well versed in both these traditions, and Abhinavgupta comes from that lineage, who is giving equal importance to both Agam and Nigam, and he does not see any kind of opposition or difference between the 2. That is why whatever is stated in the Vedic text, Nigam texts, it is also expounded and received and in fact accepted in the Agamic texts and vice versa. One example would be sufficient, that in one of the mantras in 10th mandal of Rig Veda, there is a description of Vak. It goes like this: Chatvari Shringa Trayosya Pada, or second mantra is Chatvari Shringa Trayosya Pada. Second one is Chatvari Vaka Parimita Padani Tani Vidur Brahmana Ye Manishina Guhatrini Nihta Nengayanti Turiya Vacha Manushya Vadanti. So, there are 4 levels of speech, there are 4 types of speech. But you will see that in the grammatical tradition in India, this mantra, these 2 mantras have been interpreted only as Naam, Akhyat, Upsarg and Nipat. Naam means noun, Akhyat verb, Upsarg prefixes, suffixes, and Nipat indeclinables. This is the interpretation in Yask's Nirukta in 9th century BC. This is the interpretation available in Mahabhashya 150 BC, and this is how it goes on. But in 4th, 5th century, Bhartrihari talks about Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari. Though the acceptance of Para is there, but it has not been explicitly discussed. Now, the argument is that, is there any scholar who is contemporary, early contemporary or before Bhartrihari, who has interpreted these 2 mantras of Rig Veda as Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari. You know that in none of the Vedas these names occur. This is the domain of, major domain in fact, of the Tantric texts. So that's what I was arguing, that our scholars in fact were well versed in both these traditions, Agam as well as Nigam. That's why we have a text like Vakyapadiye, and that's why we have a scholar like Acharya Abhinavgupta. So he is a epitome of this synthesis of Agam and Nigam, and he is the Pramana Bhuta Acharya. Acharya Abhinavgupta is a Pramana Bhuta Acharya, most authentic scholar and mystic of our culture. And that's why when he expounds, when he makes a statement of these various domains of knowledge, that bears the comprehensiveness, integrity and fullness of our culture and intellectual heritage. Thank you.